Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another exciting edition of Torah Study with Rabbi P. I'm Rabbi P, and these are my faithful friends that have come here. Say hello, everybody. Hello. There you go. Oh, I'm telling you, such enthusiasm here. I'm telling you, okay? So last week we talked about the mitzvah of Pesach, of how to perform the first Pesach Seder, and all the rules and regulations, and why there's rules and regulations. And today we're going to pick up the narrative, and the Jews are out of Egypt. Finally, Baruch Hashem, thank you. After a number of years and centuries being stuck in Egypt, the Jews finally are out. Okay, and here we go. And the next section starts like this: Vahi b'shalach Pariyas ha'am, and Pharaoh sent out the people. That God, it happened when Pharaoh sent out the people, that God, if you want to follow along with me on page 367, it happened when Pharaoh sent out the people that God did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines, because it was near. Meaning, now if you remember early on, when God first approached Moses, and he said to Moses, I want you to go to Pharaoh and get the people out. Moses said, nah, but there was always an underlying theme. That why does he want the people out? This is not a question of emancipation. Like, Abraham Lincoln and Emancipation Proclamation. This is, he wanted the people out for a purpose that they now become his nation. Shalach es ami v'yavduni. Send out my people in order for them to worship me. Meaning that they're not just going to get out there and then you're just going to become whatever. They are now going to have a covenant with the Almighty. Okay, that was the purpose of getting out of Egypt. And as they were leaving Egypt, the idea was that where were they going to settle? God had promised Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that he was going to give them the land of Canaan. So the Jews were supposed to go from Egypt to Canaan. In Canaan, they were going to get the covenant, and live happily ever after, and no one was going to ever bother or hear from them again. But God said, no. He did not want to take them the quickest route, because the quickest route would have been right up the coast. If you picture Egypt and Israel, the quickest route is up the coast, where Gaza is right now, and that's the way you get into Israel. It took the Israeli army in 1967 2-3 days to get to the Suez Canal. From wherever they were coming from, it took them 2-3 days. 3 days at the most, they were at the Suez Canal already. So that would have been the quickest way. But God says, no. He doesn't want to take them that way. Why doesn't he want to take them that way? He says, Ki karifu, because it was near. So that's exactly the opposite. It's so counterintuitive. If it's near, you want to go that route. Why do you want to go, if you can scratch your ear like this? Remember when we were studying in elementary school or whatever, and we were studying Talmud, we would give some of our ideas to what the text was saying. So the rabbi was saying, if you can scratch your ear like this, what do you have to go like this for? Why do you have to go with convoluted ideas? Go straight. And that's the best way to think. So the best route would have been near. He said, no. I don't want them to go near. Why don't I want them to go up the coast right there and settle quickly? Perhaps the people will reconsider when they see a war and they will return to Egypt. Meaning what's going to happen? They're going to come up the coast. Maybe perhaps the Philistines are going to attack them. We don't know. Or what? And they're going to freak out because they've never been in a war. And they're going to say, we want to go back to Egypt. So God figured, you know what, I won't take them that route. I'll take them through another route where we'll have to fight 4 wars. I'll see later on. But that's going to be much later. But this one, he doesn't want them because now, the oral tradition, and we've been studying in our class on Tuesday nights, decoding the Talmud, tells us a very interesting thing, that there were people that left Egypt early, tried to go to the land of Israel. There was a war, and the corpses and the bones were still sitting there. So maybe this is what God meant, that if he took them up the coast, they would see where the wars were, and they'd see the casualties of the war, and they'd freak out and want to come back. But this tells us 2 things. Yes, Jay?
I've always learned that the idea was that he took them the long route, the 40-year route.
Yeah.
Because God had to teach the Israelites how to become a people.
Yeah, that's a good justification after we find out that they're in the desert for 40 years. Right now, don't forget, they were not planning to be in the desert more than a couple of weeks.
Yeah, but I think that was the idea, was he knew that they needed to learn how to become a nation and a people.
No, that I understand. But that's a justification for 40 years. Yeah, that's probably a justification. Here, when we're standing over here in Parshas Beshalach, and we'll get to that later on when we get to the story of why they end up 40 years, that's a good justification. You see, that was all. But the initial plan doesn't say anywhere about 40 years, even though it's interesting. Last week when it talked about eating the manna, it said that they ate the manna for 40 years, right? Now we don't know that, we skip over that part. What do you mean they ate the manna for 40 years? Why would they be 40 years? And that doesn't make any sense to be 40 years in the desert. But that's just when they wrote the Torah at the end of Moses' days, they wrote because they were there for 40 years. It was like a jumping ahead. But here, we're thinking about, we're going into the land right away. Move, boom, boom. God was going to take us right now in a little circuitous route. He's going to take us to Mount Sinai, which is, a little south in the desert. And then from the south, boom, right into Israel. That was going to be it. We weren't going to linger in the desert for very long. Now, if you just pause here and think about this for a second, let's talk about the psychology of the community as we're studying over here, because it tells us a lot about this. There are two aspects that we find that are running through the psyche of the Jewish people. On one hand, God sees that they're a bit terrified, meaning that at the first sign of trouble, they're going to run back. Okay? So we come there. I'm not going to take them where the Philistines are, even though God could have said, you know what, I'll take them to the Philistines. If there's a war, I'll destroy the Philistines like I destroyed Egypt. I mean, why it would have been hard for him to do the same thing to the Philistines that he did to Egypt. But he doesn't do that because he knows, and Jay alluded to this a little bit, that in their minds, they're still slaves. I mean, they're still not fully developed. They're an embryo. They're a work in progress. Okay, so let's not put them in any more difficult situations than we have to. I mean, there are going to be things that we're going to encounter in the desert, but let's not immediately, us coming out of Egypt, put them in this situation where they're going to feel threatened, and once they feel threatened, they're going to run back to where they feel safe. And where is that? Egypt. So that's one part of our psyche. So if we can split our brains, down the middle. So one part of our psyche is still, we're attached to Egypt. We still have this fear in our hearts. We're still slaves. We still don't know how to live as a mature nation. And that's what it is. And yet on the other hand, the Jews follow Moses out of Egypt without really preparing. I mean, because we're going to find later on, they're going to ask why we have no bread and we have nothing. And on one hand, they are believers. They have put complete faith and loyalty to Moses. Moses tells them Wednesday night, as we discussed last week, I want you to have a dinner. When you're done with the dinner, pack up whatever you have to do, because Thursday, we're going. We're marching. We're out of here. Goodbye. See you later. And they do that. They do, even to the point of, it was very interesting. I didn't bring this up beforehand, but when God speaks to Moses and he says to him, "I'm going to bring them one more plague," okay, and that's going to be the plague of the death of the firstborn. And he says, "Vavarti be'eretz Mitzrayim," I will cross over the land of Egypt. V'ikesi b'chol b'chayr, and I'm going to smite all of the firstborn. V'loi b'chem negev, but for you, the Jewish people, there will be no plague, no casualties. So Rashi writes something very interesting. Why does God have to tell the Jews that there'll be no plague? We know there'll be no plague. We put the blood up there. Why will there be no plague? So Rashi brings it down from the Medrash, from the oral tradition, that even if an Egyptian thought to himself, "Hey, you know what? I know this is going to happen, so I'm going to go to the Perelmuter's home, and I'm going to join in the Seder." So like this, God won't find me. I'll be sitting among all the Yidlach. I'll be sitting all among the Jews. I may even grow a shtickle beard. I have a little beard with payas. I'll put on one of those round hats, and I'll sit there comfortably. And then, even though I'm an Egyptian firstborn, but God won't get me. No, don't worry. Boom! I'll find you in the Jewish home. Okay? The flip side of that was, that I won't give you any plague, that if a Jew happens to find himself in an Egyptian home that night, for whatever reason, you don't have to worry, because I won't. Think about that for a second. Think about this for a second, what the Medrash is saying. Pesach night you're sacrificing a lamb, one of Egyptian's deity, and now you go and you invite an Egyptian who oppressed you and subjugated you into your house for dinner. I mean, think about that for a second. How do you do that? Who would do such a thing? These are your mortal enemies, and yet the Jew said to himself, nah, you know what, whatever the guy's name was, Mr. Egyptian, come in and have dinner with us on Pesach night. Or, even worse, that on Pesach night, when you're supposed to be home and having a Seder, you go and into an Egyptian's home. Why would a Jew find himself in an Egyptian home that night? So even though that the Jews didn't have this confidence, they were still inviting in their taskmasters, and it is, God still prayed hard that, I never could really figure that out. Why would a Jew do that? I mean, they go to an Egyptian home on Pesach night to go visit. Go ahead, please.
What if the Jew was a servant in the household and didn't have a choice?
Servitude ended already. The servitude had ended. The slavery that we talk about ended already. Now, had he been a hired help, he'd have to quit. God was telling him, no, it's over. You have to be, Wednesday night, you have to be home with the Korban Pesach. Forget about any work that you do. I don't care if you happen to be the viceroy of Egypt or if you happen to be, a gardener. That to me, it doesn't matter. Wednesday night, you're home. Because if you're not home, but yet, even with all of that, Jews went. So I could never figure out, why would Jews do that? But you know what? There's always been this thing that Jews have gone against their best interest. It's hard to believe, but during the 1930s, there was an organization in Germany that was pro-Hitler. Jews were pro-Hitler. They felt that Hitler was the best bet to bring back Germany to its former glory. They were very proud Germans, and they wanted Germany to go back, but they were Jews. They didn't denounce their Judaism, but they wanted Hitler was going to be the one that was going to bring back Germany to its full glory. I mean, think about that for a second. Now, you can justify by saying in the 30s, no one really knew what his program was. He was just simply anti-Semitic. He didn't like the Jews. This was before Kristallnacht. But think about the psychology of Jews trying to find favor even in our worst enemies. Fast forward here. Last year when we had these demonstrations against Israel, what did we see? We saw Jews participating in these demonstrations. I couldn't figure in my wildest imagination how you can side with people that you have just seen slaughtering innocent men, women, children, mercilessly, and raping and doing the worst kind of crimes, and how you can go there and justify standing shoulder to shoulder with these people. In our mildest amount. So I said, wait a minute, this is historical. Even the Jews in Egypt did the same. Even the night before getting out of Egypt, they still were playing poker with the Egyptian friends. It's something in our psyche, not all. The most Jews, thank God, are not like this, but there's always going to be a small segment. But even these Jews that were best buddies with the Egyptians, even they left also. So you had this bifurcation, you had these dual personality traits that were running through the Jews at the same time. One, they trusted Moses. You know what? We're going. Moses says, go. What about the provisions, food, water, this, that, there? No, let's go. And they went. And God later on says in the prophets you know what, I love you so much because you trusted me at a very, very, very critical role. And that was when you had to get out of Egypt, you didn't ask any questions, and you went and you did. That's one half. And at the other half, they were still stuck in this world of slavery, where in your mind, so these two ideas are clashing, where we'll see over and over again, we're going to see that they butt heads. Okay? So there we go. So now he says, okay, come with me. We're in the desert. God says, no, I'm not going to take them that way. I'm going to take them around circuitous through the desert. But once the Egyptians see, hey, what's going on? Because they send spies with the Jews. Pharaoh wakes up the next day, on Thursday afternoon. He wakes up and he sees, the Jews are gone. He goes to Goshen and he sees it's a ghost town. And where are my workers? Where's everybody building? And they tell them the Jews left. They're gone. You said. He goes, what? They're gone. How could this happen? So he sent spies to see what's going on, and he sees that the Jews are circling around. They don't know where they're going. He figures, they're lost. They're lost, and you know what? Now's a good chance while they're still, not fully organized. Let's get going. Okay? So he says, it says, Pharaoh said, they are imprisoned in the land. The wilderness had locked them in. And then God says, that God is going to harden Pharaoh's heart like he did. He's going to chase you, and then everybody will know that I am God. And that's what he did. It was told to Pharaoh that the people have left. And Pharaoh go, what? They've left, and they're not coming back? Because remember, initially, Moses told them a 3-day story. We're only going to go for 3 days, and then we're going to come back. But it was Thursday, Friday, Shabbos. They weren't back. Pharaoh knew that they're not coming back. Okay, we have to go get them. Now I got to pick it up at verse number 6 on page 369. He harnessed his chariot and attracted his people with him. Now this is a small little verse. What is it telling us? What is it telling us here? It says already, we know that, and then we're going to go get them. Why does it have to say he harnessed his chariot and attracted his people with him? It could have just gone to the next verse. He took 600 elite chariots and all the chariots and officers and gone, and he went and chased the Jews. Why does he have to tell us he harnessed his chariot and attracted his people with him? Think about this for a second. Again, you want to be Torah scholars, you have to stop at every sentence and analyze it. When you have a chariot, one of these things, you have to attach it to your horses, right? The horse has to be attached to the chariot. Who generally does that for you if you're king?
Stable hand.
Your stable hand. A guy who does it. That's what you're hired for. I want you to attach the chariot and let's get going and give me the whip and I'm going to lead the charge. What does the verse say? Who did it? Pharaoh. Why? Why did Pharaoh need to do this for? He didn't have enough workers to help him. Why Pharaoh himself had to go and he had to attach the chariot. What does it say over here? He harnessed his chariot. You know why? Because there is protocol. There's protocol. Protocol would insist that who does the harnessing? A stable hand. A guy, a worker, a soldier, a private, even a king's hand, maybe a sergeant, but not the king himself. There's protocol to what a king does. King walks out when everything's ready to go. Let's go. Move it. Not here. You know why? Because what disrupts protocol? Hate. Hate disrupts protocol. His hatred of the people was so strong. He was such a hater of people that the protocol that normally would happen, he discarded. He totally discarded the protocol. I mean, think about, again, the psychology of this man. He had been beaten 10 times. And the worst of the worst, all of the firstborn were killed in Egypt. And yet, he was willing to go there to this last man. He was willing to sacrifice to fight the Jewish people. And he knew that God was on their side. He knew Moses was a capable leader and was going to bring him down. And yet, he didn't hesitate. And not only did he not hesitate, but he went ahead and harnessed his own chariot. That's how much he hated the Jews. Because love and hate disrupt the protocol. Well, how do we know on love? Because the same thing is true way back when. If you remember, early on in the story, we had a fellow by the name of Abraham. Abraham had a son by the name of Isaac. Thank you. The 10th test, God said, please, I have a 10th test. I want you to sacrifice Isaac. What does it say? It says, Abraham woke up in the morning, and he saddled his donkey. Why does he have to tell me? Who cares? I care who saddled his donkey. And what if Shmerel saddled his donkey? Gimple saddled his donkey. What do I care who saddled his donkey? Because here's, on the other hand, love disrupts the protocol. Because there's a normal protocol. Abraham is already an older man here. He has workers. He has a lot of workers. Who's supposed to saddle his donkey? Some other person come and saddle the donkey. No. Because of his love for what he was going to do, even though he was going to take Isaac, but because Hashem gave him this commandment, so love disrupts the protocol. Now we know when love disrupts a protocol, right? Have you ever been in love? Real love? If you say no, that means yes. How do you know if you've been in love? because instead of going to watch the Super Bowl, you're out there buying curtains. Okay? That's the thing. No, but honey, it's Super Bowl Sunday. I can't go buy curtains. I mean, this is Yom Kippur here. This is Rosh Hashanah. This is Purim and Simchat Torah, all in one. Wait, I'm going to go schlep. Love disrupts protocol, because protocol would demand what do you do on 3:30 Super Bowl Sunday here in California? Watch the Super Bowl while eating wings or whatever else you do over there. But no. If you're in love, it's going to disrupt the protocol. So you'll be sleeping like that song says, right? When you're in love, you'll sleep in the rain. You'll give up your friends. You'll do everything because you're in love. There you go. So that's the good part of love. I'm all for it. Except if she makes you go watch the Super Bowl in Sears, that's why you go buy curtains, but all the husbands are in the television section, in the department store. But that's a different story for another day. Here, in this circumstance, hatred, and we have this another time also later on when they hire Bilam. Bilam is going to saddle his own donkey. Bilam is a great prophet, a great seer. He's a rich man. Why doesn't he have someone who's going to saddle his donkey? Same thing. Hatred, true hatred, always disrupts the protocol. And that's what happened here with Pharaoh and the Jewish people. That's the kind of anti-Semite he was, that he couldn't stand, even to his worst kind of deficit. That means it was going to hurt him at the end, and he knew it in his heart that it's not going to be well. Well, it's gone. 600 chariots are going to be able to take the Jewish people. Doesn't matter. We had it in our lifetime with Adolf Hitler. Hitler hated the Jews so much that he went against protocol. His generals, by the end of the war, were begging him to please stop sending people to Auschwitz. We need the trains for supplies to our troops. No. He wouldn't stop, even for a moment, he wouldn't stop sending the trains, because that was the pathological hatred that he had to the Jews. And we see it here in the Torah, because everything's in the Torah. Everything is in the Torah. So finally he comes out there, and now he chases them, and now the Jews look around, and what do they see? We are stuck. Okay? We are stuck. We are stuck because right in front of us is a sea, and behind us are the Egyptians. Now, in all reality, go ahead, Marcy.
What sea?
The Red Sea. The Red Sea. The Red Sea, Yam Suf. The Red Sea is right there. Okay? The sea is right there. Okay? So, we have now, what do the Jews do? We're standing now at the sea in front of us, and the Egyptians in back of us. So what do the Jews do? They do what Jews are experts in doing. They form committees. Okay? They form committees. And they form committees in order to do what? What are Jewish committees established? To make meetings. That's it. To make meetings. That's what committees are for. Make a meeting, how long the table should be, how wide the table should be, what color the tablecloth should be, what we should serve at the meetings. The meetings get nothing done, but we have meetings. We have meetings. We got meetings. So they immediately break out in this terror. This terror. Because what? God says to them, what are they screaming? What are they screaming? What are they screaming about? Let them just go. Go where? Hashem says, go where? Because I'm going to bring a plague upon the Egyptians. But there's nowhere to go. What do you mean go? Walk. Well, where are you walking? The water is there. You're going to drown, and then you have the Egyptians behind you. I mean, go anywhere. So that's why the Jews cry out, and they start giving Moses some pieces of advice. So the committees come with resolutions. So there's 4 committees. And Moses is in his tent. He's trying to communicate with God to figure out, okay, what are we going to do now? The sea is in front of us. The Egyptians are in back of us. How do we proceed? God knows how we're going to proceed. Don't worry about it. We're going to proceed. Take it easy. One group tells God, and we've gone through this a few times already, so one group tells God, look. Let's just go back to Egypt. Well, we're going to fight with them. Let's go back to Egypt. We had safety there. We had this. We were good. We had nice houses. Well, what are you going to go? Okay, group number 1. Okay, this is group number 2 said, you know what, Moses? It's over. It's over. Finished. We had a couple of days of freedom. This is like the Hemlock Society. You know the Hemlock Society? Let's just march into the river. Just take it around. Enough tsaros. We had tsaros there. We have tsaros now. it's all over, let's just drown this. Okay, thank you very much for your opinion. Then we had the Kahani group. You know what the Kahani group said? Let's fight them. I mean, there's 600 of them, there's 600,000 of us. Come on, we lose a few casualties, but it's worth it. I mean, what are we afraid for? Let's grab our swords, and it says they left armed. Let's grab our arms and then fight them. Okay, thank you for your opinion. And then there was a fourth opinion, was let's daven mincha. The sun is going down, let's pray. So everybody but you see, the problem is that they didn't do this in order. They all were screaming at this at one time at him. Yeah, it's Jews at the meeting. Mincha, war, drowning, go back. Moses. You could imagine Moses sitting over there listening to them. And finally God says, listen. Tell them this. 2 words, first of all. Va'atem tacharishun. Please shut up. Okay? Tells them all, please just shut up. Okay? All of you together. Okay? And I will tell you that God has promised that He will find a way, that He's going to show you the greatest salvation that you have seen. Don't have to worry. You have to just follow what God says, and everything is going to be okay. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. We're going to take care of business. Okay. Now, how are you going to take care of business? This is what God wants us to do. Just let's march. March where? How to go? There. What do you mean there? Can't you see Moses? Maybe there's a river there. There's a sea there. Where's there to go? No, let's just go. If He says go, we'll go. Okay. So now, in the oral tradition, tells us in the Medrash, there was 2 opinions. What happened at this point? First opinion, remember I told you that there was basically 2 sides to the Jews? Remember, there was the side that trusted, and then there was the side that was very guarded because of the slave mentality. So according to one opinion was, they all broke out, all of the tribes broke out with an announcement, they want to go first. So Reuben said, no, I should go first, and I should go first, well, I should go first. They all wanted to go first because they trusted, we want to go first. Who jumped in first? The tribe of Benjamin, the youngest brother. He jumped in first. Their tribe said, you know what? Enough talk, let's go. And they jumped in first into the sea, and then God brought the east wind, and then it opened up, and then everybody followed them. And the reason why the opinion is that Benjamin went first, because in whose land was the temple built? Jerusalem, that mount. The Temple Mount is found in the tribe of Benjamin's territory. So because they were willing to go first, to show this tremendous sense of self-sacrifice, God blessed them and rewarded them that, you know what, because you did this, you are going to be the owners of the Temple Mount area. Meaning the Temple Mount itself belonged to no one. But it's in your territory. You won't have to travel far for the holidays. Everybody else is going to have to come from all over Israel. Great. That's one opinion. The other opinion went the other way. No, you go first, Jay. No, you go first, Jay. We say one of the Jays should go first. I don't care which one. Let's throw Jay in first. Everybody, Yehuda, okay? So everybody said, no, not me. You go. I can't. You know what? I just cleaned my suit. Just came from the cleaners. I'm going to ruin it. I have a new pair of shoes. Everybody gave their excuses why they shouldn't go in. Finally, one fellow by the name of Nachshon ben Aminadav, he was from the tribe of Judah, said, I'm in. And he went in, and we talked about it. It went slowly, and the water didn't split, and it went further up. Finally, it came to his neck and his mouth, and just as the body was about to submerge completely, bingo! They went, and then the tribe of Judah jumped in first, and everybody followed after them, and therefore we see that God rewarded the tribe of Judah by giving them the kingdom. Who are the kings in Israel? David, Solomon, and forever God promises that the tribe of Judah will always carry this mantle of royalty. So either way, whether it was Benjamin, whether it was this, Nachshon, either way, finally the Jews went in. And then it tells us in the oral tradition that there were many miracles that happened. I mean, the ground became solid. Sometimes in other opinions, the grounds were muddy. Whatever it is, finally the Jews follow. They get through. The Egyptians see, hey, you know what? Hold it. There's dry land. Let's go. Now, as the waters are already descending, the Egyptians should have said to themselves, wait, hold on, this is a trick. This is a trick. You know, they specially did this so we should run in there to drown. So let's stop. They couldn't. God made it that they were anusa. They were lost before the Jewish people, and the word anusa comes from anus, which means that it was unintentional, meaning they actually were dragged into. God had dragged them into the Red Sea. They wanted to stop, but God dragged them into the sea, and as he got them into the dry land, bango. What he did was he let the waters descend, and then he also, like it says, Rashi says, like a soup, where he stirred them around, so they went up and down, and the chariots were on top of them, and that was it.
Yeah.
End of Egyptians, and that's where Jay leaves. That's what it is. That's his cue. I'll see you Saturday. Okay, I'll see you then. And Jay leaves. Okay, all right. So now we have the Jews are free, and the Egyptians are not a problem anymore. No more problem. That's it. Now we would think for sure, this is going to go swimmingly well right now. Because we got rid of our biggest enemy. We're going to go there and we're going to go, boom. They come out, they sing this tremendous song, Oz Yosha Moshe. They're enthusiastic, they're great, that this. And here is, if you think that the Torah, everybody says the Torah is so masculine heavy, because it's so patriarchal. Everybody is a man. Abraham is a man, yes. But Sarah's not a man. But Moses is the leader. Aaron is the high priest. What about the women? Let me show you something about the women. But you have to read it. You've got to read it in. So here, Moses sings this tremendous song about the glory of God, and we thank him so much for performing his wonderful, wonderful thing. Now everybody around the world, all over, is terrified of the Jews. Everybody hears about what happened at the Red Sea. The Red Sea split. The mightiest army in the world, the Egyptian army, was completely wiped out, destroyed, eviscerated. Everybody's terrified of the Jews. They don't know what's going to happen next, but there's afraid. There's a fear and a terror that seizes all of the nations around this region. The Jews are on top, and they're marching. Okay? Moses finishes the song. What happens, the Torah tells us, Miriam, the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, which I will get to in a moment, took her drum in her hand, and all the women went forth after with her with drums and with dances. Miriam spoke to them, sing to Hashem, for he is exalted above the arrogant, having hurled horse with its rider into the sea. So they also sing their own song. And here's a little bit of an interesting tidbit. When it came to Moses and sang this song, what happened? What does it say? Then Moses and the children of Israel chose to sing the song to Hashem, and they said the following, and they began right away into the song. Not Miriam and the women. Miriam, the prophetess, sister of Aaron, took her drum in her hand, and all the women went forth. What did the women have that the men didn't have? Where did the drums come from? Yet even in Egypt they believed. They had already prepared what we call salvation drums. They knew that they're leaving. They believed Moses. They prepared drums even before Moses told them to leave Egypt. They already had. Why? Because the women, they were the true believers. The men, now hedge fund guys, a little here, a little there, maybe, but not the women. Not the women. The women trusted him explicitly, and that's why when they came out, they didn't manufacture the drums there, right there on the spot. Do you think they built drums? No, they had drums already prepared from when they were in Egypt. They came out with these salvation drums. Women were far ahead in faith and loyalty to Moses than the men were. The men came, they were singing. After it happened, they sang. The women sang and danced. They were really joyous. That's why it tells us in the Talmud, because of the righteous women, our forefathers were redeemed from Egypt. Okay, because of the women, not the men, because it was the righteous women. What were the righteous women? Why the righteous women? It says the women, even though they knew how difficult their life was, and how oppressed they were, and how subjugated they were, they still raised families. They had children and encouraged their husbands to have children, and they raised those children. Even under the penalty of drowning, they didn't stop. They were willing to do that. And they were the ones that imbued any kind of faith in their families. It came from the children. And they tell a story of, when it says, in merit of the righteous women, our forefathers were redeemed from Egypt. How did it work? So if you remember, way back when, God promised Abraham, how many years are they going to be foreigners? Who said 400? Okay, 400. Good. 400 years. Yet, if you make a calculation as their time in Egypt, it only turns out to be 210. They were not 400 years in Egypt. So we have a calculation, Rashi enumerates that really the 400 years started from when Isaac was born. If you take the time when Isaac was born, that already... But as in a humorous fashion, someone said, no. The women went to God like this. Listen, God, please let us out of Egypt after 210. But God said, but I promised that there'll be 400 years. So they said, no, leave it up to us. We'll make our husbands feel like they were here 400 years. Okay? All right? Just leave it up to us. So the women made the husbands feel like it was 400 years, and that's how they got out. But that's a John... It's humor. You have to have a little humor, otherwise they're going to say he wasn't humorous. He wasn't humorous. But it was because of the women, and the truth is, when we get out of this exile, when Mashiach comes, it's also going to be because of the women. But how do I know? Look at the first, when I read the first sentence, Miriam the prophetess, it says the sister of Aaron took the sister of Aaron. 1 second, who are they forgetting? Oh yeah, sister of Aaron, with the Moses. Where's Moses? Who's more famous at this time here, Aaron or Moses? If you wanted to hook up, you'd say the sister of Moses. Moses is the president. Aaron is the vice president. You want to go after the president? No. There's a backstory here. What do you mean she was a prophetess? When was she a prophetess? Back in the day when she was a kid, maybe 5 or 6 years old. Her father decided, because of this decree of killing all of the boys and drowning them, he decided he's separating from his wife because there's no use having children anymore. Okay, there's no use having children anymore. He had 2. There was Miriam and there was Aaron. He had 2 children. He had a nice family, nice American family, a boy and a girl. Dayenu. Now he's not going to have any more kids. So Miriam, this young girl, comes to him and she says to him, "You are worse than Pharaoh." He goes, "Why am I worse than Pharaoh?" She says, "Because Pharaoh only instituted and decreed the death of the boys, but you, by separating from mom, have decreed the death of both boys and the girls. So you're worse than Pharaoh." When he heard that, he decided to himself, you know what, what did I do? And he was a leader. Amram was a leader among the Jews. So then later on it says, if you remember back in the beginning of the book, that he went and he took this woman and Moses was born. So here in this sentence, Miriam the prophetess, when was she a prophetess? By telling her father, you're going to see that, you know what, we are going to have this great leader is going to come out. And then the father then says to her, he's a little hesitant, but they have the boy, and then he says, "Oh, see, I have to hide him." So he says to her, look what your prophecy did. I have to put my son now in a basket. And she says to him, "Hold on, relax. We're playing the long game here, not playing the short game. Wait, you're going to see what's going to happen." And what happens to this little boy in the basket? He grows up to be the greatest Jew boy. I mean, the greatest Jew that ever lived, right? Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay? So here, the verse implies that Miriam the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, because when she prophesied about Moses, she was only the sister of Aaron, and that's why it says over here, just in case someone asks you, maybe your Gentile neighbor is reading the Bible because they're more okay, forget it. Okay? And ask you, here, you know what, here in Old Testament, in the Old Testament, I read Miriam the prophet, sister of Aaron. What about Moses? Now you'll know, because when she prophesied, she was the sister of Aaron, and Moses wasn't yet born. Okay. So now they come and they have the first encounter where they have no water. Now, there's no water, but there's a stream. The problem is, it's bitter. It's bitter. So God says to him, look, you know what? They cry to Moses, and they say to him, you know what? Throw this branch in, and everything is going to be better, and they're sweet, and they're delicious, cool, desert, water, everybody's happy, and we're moving on. and the Jews come to this place and they settle. Okay. Now you think, okay, now they got water. They have everything. Let's go. No. They journey from Elim, and the second day, the 15th day of the second month of this, the entire complaint against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. The children of Israel said to them, "If only we had died by the hand of Hashem in the land of Egypt, as we sat by the pot of meat." Listen to this, what they're saying to them. You know what? Oh, if only we would have died in Egypt. You know, when we ate bread to satiety, for you have taken it out to this wilderness to kill the entire congregation by famine. What's wrong with these people? Moses sat a whole year bringing plagues, showing the Jewish people the hand of Hashem, takes them out of Egypt, shows them the splitting of the sea, shows them the miracle of the sweetening of the water, and now they come and they literally fabricate a story. What do you mean you were sitting there at the what did they say there? If only we had died by the hand of Hashem in the land of Egypt. Really? Who even thinks about something like that? Oh, we wish we would have died in Egypt. Really? Everything that happened to you was nothing? It took you out of Egypt, made you free people. You don't have to be a slave anymore. You wanted to die in Egypt? As we sat by the pot of meat. What pot of meat? Who had meat there? Pot of meat. These were slaves. Remember, all day, all night, all they did was work, gather straw, build bricks, make the pyramids. What do you mean by pot of meat? When we ate bread to satiety. So maybe it's possible that the Egyptians, in order for them to work hard, maybe they fed them well. Maybe they said, hey, you know what? You got to work hard. We're going to give you roast beef sandwiches like you get in a deli. If you ever go to a deli, they give you these big sandwiches like this. So maybe that's what they meant. They had deli sandwiches and everything, and they ate well over there. Well, never happened. What are you talking about, Jews? So what they said was, no. We were smelling. We sat. It doesn't say we ate. It says as we sat by the pot of meat. The Egyptians ate meat. We just loved the aroma. Meaning, the aroma, the sweet aroma of meat wafting in the air, and it came into the Jewish home, and we sat there, we enjoyed it so much that the Egyptians were eating this meat, and yet we were not eating from it, but we loved the smell. We loved the smell. We just loved the smell. Okay, fine. You know what? Great. Have a wonderful day with that. They literally fabricated this story, and yet they complained to Moses, and God said to them, okay, you know what? Okay, look. Bread is something they need. Yeah, you got to have bread. Bread is a staple to every meal, diet. You have to have bread. Even though in America they tell you don't eat bread because it's too much carbs. There's too much carbs to the bread. But normal, what? Gluten-free. Okay, bread you have to have. You have to have bread. So bread, what we're going to do with bread is we're going to give them the bread, and I'm going to give them a special type of bread. Fine, good. The meat, on the other hand, that already is excess. Come on. That's already, like complaining that you don't have meat. Not everybody has meat. Think around in the world today. How many people live without eating meat? There's more people in the world, they never get to eat meat. We don't know about this because this is America. We could never, You remember in the beginning of the pandemic, COVID, you remember COVID? Which happened about 40, 50 years ago. Okay? 40, 50 years ago. So remember in COVID in the beginning, in the early months, there was a run on toilet paper. Do you remember the toilet paper crisis? You went to Costco, you couldn't find toilet paper. People were literally buying dozens and dozens and dozens of rolls of toilet paper, even when they were living alone. Okay? One person, and they were buying hundreds of rolls of toilet paper because the rule was that we are in a toilet paper shortage. Okay? I thought to myself at that time, how ironic is it going to be that, we think about the end of the American Empire. Okay? Listen, every empire has a good run. We had a good run, 70 and 250 years. We had a very nice run, America. We were on top of the world for a while. And eventually everybody runs its course. The Roman Empire is not around anymore. The Babylonian Empire, no one empire is around anymore. So this is the end of but how ironic it should be because of toilet paper. Okay? How ironic it should be. Because we ran out of toilet paper, we're going to bring down the government. We're going to have a coup. We're going to have a civil war. My wife, I start thinking about it now, getting palpitations. But one-ply toilet paper. That was all available. Well, who in the wildest imagination buys one-ply toilet paper? We almost got divorced over this. You go in a store, you buy one-ply. I said, that's all that there was. And believe me, that we're fighting over the one-ply. I'm not using it. One-ply, I refuse to use a one-ply toilet paper. I want my normal toilet paper, 7 plies at least I need. Okay, I need the Charmin and the Scott put together. Are you kidding? I'm Abba Perelmuter. Okay, I almost got divorced because of this. So you think about this. We in America have no clue what it means to be without something. They tell the story. You have to go back a few years back to when the Soviet Union was at the height of the Cold War. It makes much more sense than the story I'm going to tell you. Okay, so think about the Cold War, like in the days of Brezhnev. Remember Brezhnev? Let's go back to the 70s. So in the 70s, a journalist found 4 different individuals and they were going to do a survey. Okay? The 4 individuals were, one was a Russian, one was Polish, one was American, and one was Israeli. Okay, had 4 different nationalities. He sat them down, and he said to the Russian, "Excuse me, sir, what is your opinion of the meat shortage?" And the Russian said, "What's an opinion?" Okay, it was Russia. Then he asked the Polish guy, "Excuse me, sir, what is your opinion of the meat shortage?" So the Polish guy says, "What's meat?" There's meat there. Then he goes to the American, "Excuse me, sir, what is your opinion of the meat shortage?" The American says, "What's a shortage?" There's no shortage. And he looks at the Israeli and says, "Excuse me, sir, what is your opinion of the meat shortage?" And he goes, "What's excuse me?" Okay. I'm just sure it's a joke. It's a joke around this way. But that was the thing. What did the Americans say? We don't know what a shortage is. But here, that's the drum that they're cooking up over here. So God says, you know what? Okay, fine. I'm going to give them manna in the morning, and then the meat, which they desired so much, I'm going to give them in the afternoon when it's not so comfortable to go gather it. Much better in the morning, you have more energy, you can go gather the bread, but in the evening I'm going to make them work for the meat. And he sends in this fat bird that's called a quail, and they fill up the whole thing and they have quail meat, fine. But how do they get the bread? The bread comes in a very interesting way, from heaven. How did it land? So there was. It says in there was a layer of dew, then came this thing that laid on top of it, and then there was another layer of dew. When the sun rose, the top layer of dew melted, so it exposed the manna, which is manhu. What is it? That's why it's called manna, because they had no idea what this was. So they called it manna, but it tasted like a cracker that was tzapichas midvash that was dipped in honey. That's what it says over here. We know from the Medrash that it had this magical property that it tasted like anything. Whatever you wanted, it tasted like. Okay, fine. What?
Chicken.
Yeah, pizza, burgers, whatever you wanted, it tasted like. Great. It was a miracle. So it went there, it laid there like this. Now God says, okay, this is what I want you to do. I'm going to give them every day the manna, but there's conditions. Number 1, everybody gets the same amount. You're not going to go like the Elon Musk of he's going to get 60% of all the manna he's going to corner, and you have to buy it from him. No, it doesn't work that way. It's free to everybody, and everybody gets the same amount. 1 omer per head per household. Meaning, if you or your wife had 6 kids, you get 8 omers. An omer is a size. Whatever it was in the manna, you bring it home, and that's going to last you for the day. So if you're going to have 3 meals, remember, you can eat 1/3 of a manna for each meal. A 1/3 of an omer for each meal. You want to eat 1 meal, 2 meals? I don't care. That's not my business. You split it, but no more than 1. No more than 1 omer. Don't go collecting. Number 2 is on Friday, you're going to freak out because there's going to come double. You're going to come home and you're going to have 2 omers per person, because I'm not doing it on Shabbos. I'm not putting the manna out there on Shabbos. Shabbos, you won't find it. Okay, Moses comes to the people and he says to them, listen. You're going to get every day fresh manna. Whatever it tastes like, it tastes like. Don't worry about it. You have to go out there and you have to gather it. No more than an omer per person. Okay, so what's the first thing they do? What do you think the first thing they do? You think? No, they don't complain. But they don't complain because they should have complained. No, they take 6 amma. Yeah, they hoard. Now, listen, let's be honest. we would probably do the same, because I always say this, I said this on Shul on Shabbos, and I have always said this, how many people here have a refrigerator and a freezer? Why do you have a refrigerator and a freezer? We have plenty of food here, you could go every day and buy fresh. We don't like that. We like to know that when I go to sleep at night, that I have food for the next day. I don't want to have to worry. Now imagine if I came every night and stole all of your food in your freezer and said to you, you know what, don't worry about it. I'll provide for you every day breakfast, lunch, and supper. Would you trust me? No. You see? Right away Jack says no. And he's supposed to be my friend. Okay? No. So that was God is saying to the people every day. So the first thing they do is they gather more. Moses says, but didn't I tell you? Oh, so what happened to the leftover? It got wormy. It got worms in it. Thank you. It got good. So right away Moses gets angry at them. And then of course he says, on Shabbos you will not see anymore. So what do they do on Shabbos? Some of them go out looking for the thing. And God says, what am I going to do with these people? What am I going to do? I told them specifically, it's Friday, you will have double. That's why we have the 2 chalot. Why do we have 2 challahs on Friday night? Because now you know why I'm lechem mishneh. Because it's double the portion. That's why you have 2 challahs on Friday night. Because you get double the portion for Shabbos. So we have 2 challahs. Why 1 challah is not enough? Especially for those that, like me, that need only a little challah. Okay? Is plenty. Why do we need 2 challahs? Because it's double the portion. That's what it is. Fine. Great. So God says, I did this specifically to test them. I want to test them to see. Now, what was the test? So there's an argument if the test was whether they shouldn't bring extra, or whether they shouldn't come on Shabbos, or whether the test was, in general, whether they trust God. You know, because if I don't trust him, I say, what happens now if he's like busy one day? Like one day there's something going on in Southeast Asia, I don't know, and he's busy, and he forgets about the manna in the desert. What's going to happen with us? We're going to be starving. So I'm going to take a little, I'm going to hide it. Like, in the house, I'm going to hide it. So the God says, I'm going to test you to see if you trust me or not. And that was complete trust, because every day they went out there and they found manna and more manna and more manna and manna. And this was what we call bread of faith, because you had to believe that it's going to be there in the morning, that God was not going to discard, God was not going to get angry, and that every day he was going to do that. But that he did lovingly, even though the people complained like bitterly. But he said, you know what, bread they need, and they need the manna was supposed to take the place of the bread in the meal, and that's okay, no problem. Fine. Okay. Great. So now we got over the manna business. So now we come to another place. Masa Umariva. We come to another place and there's no water. Now, let's be honest. What would we do if we were in a place with no water? What would we do? We'd complain. Well, I go to Moses. You're a mother with little children are asking you for water. Well, what are you going to do? Stand there and tell them you have no water? When I read that portion, sometimes it brings me back to a terrible situation. I mean, you're stuck. There's nowhere to get water here. In a ghetto. My mother was in a ghetto for 4 years. There was no food. I could just imagine what it was like over there when people screaming, please, mommy, dad, get me something. I need some water, What do you want to tear your hair out of your head, right? You can't provide, even the basic necessities for your children. So the people over there are screaming to Moshe Rabbeinu, get it, we need water. What are we going to do here? So many of the commentaries justify this. This is sometimes like the bread and the pot of meat. That was simply just provocation, without justification. But no water is a justified complaint. The only difference is how you ask, right? If you go to Moses and you say to him, listen, I understand that we're going to be here for a while and we need water. Okay, so God said, but they didn't. Again, they go back to the old thing. Oh, if we only had died in Egypt, Wait, go back to Egypt. Why did you take us out of Egypt? This ingratitude rubbed God wrong. Even when you're justified in your complaint, right? But just the way you say it. Now we know how we settle differences. As if you have a complaint for something, let's say you're renting and your landlord is not coming through, and you come in there and you're belligerent. What are your chances that your landlord is going to be nice? Now, if for those who are landlords, if a person comes in and has a justified complaint, look, the ceiling is leaking or the hot water is out or whatever the circumstances are, there's a way to settle differences. If you come belligerently and you scream and you threaten and all of that sense, you know what? Chances are you may get it done, but not very often. Very often. So that was the complaint. So God says, take your stick and show them that this stick is not only there for punishment purposes, but it's also there to do good things. Moses hits the rock splits, and from then on, they have this wonderful well that travels with them. So now they're all covered. You got the clouds of glory now that's over you. You have the well of fresh water that's traveling with you. You have the manna that's coming with you. So every one of these was there because in the benefit of one of these three giants. We had Moses, Aaron, and Miriam. Miriam, the water, the well that came because of Miriam, because she took care of him at the water, because Moses was the manna, Aaron was the clouds of glory, and now the Jewish people were set. They all were set to come to the big event. And the big event is that now we're going to strike a covenant between me and you, and forever we're going to get into this marriage, and this is going to be a bond that's going to be unbreakable, and it's going to happen at Mount Sinai. But what's going to happen at Mount Sinai is something that we're going to have to wait for next week. You could sit here in anticipation, or you could go home and get something to eat, like manna or some juice, or whatever you eat, and next Wednesday we'll find out what happens at Sinai. Thank you very much.